third grade, but my dad took a job as a dishwasher. And I said, why did you do that? He said, because I couldn't fail. He was afraid of failing. So eventually he became night service manager at the Palace Hotel, and then also the Sir Francis Drake, and then a friend of his he knew there, got a great job as a manager down in Mansfield, Ohio, the manager of the hotel. So he came to Cleveland, and he loved the weather. He hated San Francisco because it's always cold and rainy, and here it was nice. So anyway, he came here and met my mother at an ice skating rink. They were great skaters. My dad was a fabulous ice skater, that he would be on a lake, and my brother and I, we were wobbly and falling all over, and he just danced around us. But anyway, he then did all of that, and that's an interesting story because her maiden name is Eger, E-G-E-R, and I told her she only, after I proposed to her, saved a lot of money because all her luggage, which was initialed, and her, the sweaters and so on, it went from E to E, E-R-M-L to E-G-E-R. It was a short transition, so it was an economical marriage, I said. So, but we had this blind date that I was mentioning, and she worked in the American Airlines, and at that time she was in the reservations and really in the ticket department. They were actually handwriting the tickets out for people who would call in and so on. They had a battery of ladies, and so I went down there, and it was in November, and there was a snowstorm. I was 45 minutes, and the office was at CAC building at like 12th and Euclid, and I got down there, and so I said, well, we're going to have another couple. We're going to go out to a little place on Brook Park and Chef Louis, and it was a restaurant as well as a nightclub tour, and we danced, and she's a great dancer. And finally it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I said, well, it's time to go home. Okay, now where do we go? Well, we went down Brook Park East, and she lived in Cleveland Heights. Well, listen, let me, after Route 17 and 21, the next big city that I know of is either New York or Erie, Pennsylvania. So we go up Granger Road Hill, and we get there, and halfway, or not on halfway, we top of the hill, and I said, well, how far are we? And she said, we're about halfway there. And I said, my God, she does live in Erie, Pennsylvania. So finally we got to her house and dropped her off, but it was an hour and 20-minute drive. And I had to come all the way back at the Parma Heights. So finally, after knowing her for 3 months, I proposed to her. And that was a mistake, I thought, because we drove in her driveway, and we sat there, and I said, would you marry me? And that's what happened. I thought it was a long 30 seconds, and I said, big dummy, you're in big trouble. You made a bad move. And all of a sudden she said yes, and I said, oh my God. So I'm driving home, I said, I don't believe I did that, because I had no idea I was going to say that, and it just popped out. I had no ring, anything. So by the time I got home, I wasn't sure if I really said it or not. And I said, you got to be kidding me. She was making more money than I was to begin with. And I had no idea I wanted to get married, but I knew I was really in love with her. But what happens, I said, I have to figure out how can I ask her? Did I propose to you? Well, that doesn't work. So I called her at work the next day, and she came on the phone, and I said, Jan, this is Vic. And she says, oh, I'm so happy. And I thought, it's done. I know. So I called my friend quickly. I said, we got to get a ring. And so along was history. And 52 years later, here I am with 3 children and 8 grandchildren. So it's all worked out fine.
Rattle off your children's names.
Well, I have our first daughter was Denise. She was outstanding. All 3 of the kids have done very well. Denise went to school at Rocky River, went to Miami University, became a CPA, met her husband there. But at that time, the collusion was if you were engaged, you couldn't have the 2. She left, went to her first love, which was teaching, went to Kent State, and got her master's in education at the same time. And she became a school teacher of mathematics, which she's very good in. Second is our son, Chuck. He was always the reader of the family. I'd find him reading the Encyclopedia Britannica, and he would tell me, there's a fish with only one eye, and I said, nah, I don't, And so he was very good. He graduated from Rocky River as well, and went to Bradley University, became an electrical engineer, and then took a job at Abbott Laboratories, which is a chemical, you know. I said, how does an electrical engineer fit? Well, it did. And he became the youngest senior project engineer in the company's history, where he worked with people from the research development to the final responsibility of buying millions of dollars worth of capital equipment to make the pill or liquid, whatever it was. But Don Reber, I had Chuck work when he was 16 years old, come to the plant. And I told the vice president of manufacturing, and I said, Bill, give him the dirtiest, hardest job you have, so I want him to know what's going on in the world. So he was steam cleaning machines that were in the back parking lot with a huge kind of steam cleaner, hot water. And he came back so dirty that he had his shoes in the trunk. I had an oilcloth in the front seat, and at 16 years old, he'd fall asleep on the way home from work. So he knew what hard work was. But I became an electrical engineer and worked at Abbott. And Don had said, see if you'd like to come to work at high level. Well, he said, Dad, I'm electrical. I'm not mechanical. And so he said, no. So finally, he was there for 4 or 5 years, did very well. And I kept telling him what was going on at work. And he said, okay, I think I'll change. And the reason he did, I said, why don't you try to see if you can help in marketing with the technical aspects of it, because he had blood analyzers and there were some things in marketing which he thought he'd be interested in. Well, they shortchanged him, and because he was such a good engineer, they told him no, and he didn't like that. So when he said, I'll come, and I said, well, you can't, because now you have to go back, get your master's at University of Chicago. He's halfway. So I delayed that. Then I found out everything I know about my son in one simple thing. He graduated, and I said, you ready now? And he said, no. And I said, what? And the reason for it, he said, I've been working on this project for 7 months, and I got another 6 months to go. I can't leave it. And the thought of his responsibility for the company he was leaving and what he said and how he said it told me everything I needed to know. So, and he's very successful. And he worked with the company at high level and still was there, and then the company eventually was sold and is working for one of my best customers. After that, our youngest is the one that really nicked us. The other were relatively inexpensive in costing in colleges. Krista was the one who was the live wire. She was incredible. She was gregarious, outgoing. She, in her high school class at Rocky River, the women dominated the class. And they, student council, they were running the show. And so she went to Cornell. She had a chance to go to Cornell or Brown in Boston University, and so she went to Cornell, and she started engineering and wound up with first year with about a 3.8 engineering, and she said, I quit. I don't want to do that. I said, what are you talking about? And she said, they're eggheads. They're all sitting around. I hate it. I said, okay. So we had to decide what she wanted to do. I said, what courses did you like in high school? And it was English and Spanish. She took Spanish for all that time, plus the fact she was a foreign AFS student in Paraguay for a year at 15 years of age, and came back fluent in Spanish as well as English. And with that, she graduated an English and Spanish major, and then she wanted to become an attorney, and she went to Chicago and worked with the people there, and decided, she didn't like that. So she came back. She decided to go to Harvard. She had a full boat and a master's program at Brown. She turned that down and went to Harvard, which cost an arm and a leg. So all the costs that we had for freebies and with the other two, it equaled out. But she graduated in public policy, which I had no idea what public policy was, but she said every company has a policy manual, and she wound up being very, very well educated and is living in Miami now for about 7, 8 years, has 2 young children. Denise has 3 children. One's a junior at Miami University, one's a senior, and one's a sophomore in high school at Hudson in Ohio. And then Chuck's children are 13, 12, and 11 in the Rocky River school system. And Krista has 2 children, one boy and a half, 1.5 and 3 years, and they're in Miami. So we have a home in Fort Myers, Florida. So when I go to Florida, I have the best of 2 worlds. I have a family down there in Miami and 2 families up here in Rocky River. So it worked out fine.
Spoken like a proud grandfather.
Yeah, it sounded great. It really was. It was amazing. They're doing very well, and I'm really proud of them. I give them heck all the time. I told them from the day that they were born and went to school, all three of them, before they left for school, first of all, we never missed an education session with their teachers, and they heard me say every day, mind your teachers, do your very best, and never give up. They had that, and then when I went to college, mind your professors, mind your teachers, and never give up, do your very best. Mind your employee, so the whole thing. So the work ethic was really instilled with them, and they've carried it over. So that's the proud grandfather and father talking.
Well, let's swing over to Lakewood Country Club. How did you get involved with this wonderful facility and club?
Well, it was very interesting. One day, the president of our company, after I had been working there for about 12 years, he said, and he was a member of Lakewood Country Club for, I don't know, since maybe 60s or 50s, said, well, you can go to Westwood Country Club and go to Lakewood. Now, I knew a couple of fellows from church groups and bridge and social activities that were members, and I had played at Lakewood a couple of times as guest. And I said, well, I'll go to Lakewood. And I did, and so I joined, and I joined the club in 1976, and came here and saw a great golf course. And at that time, this building, as I said, which was built in '61, I knew all about it because I had walked around when we were with Huron Cement and National Gypsum, and got to know the fellows and the people, and we enjoyed 37-some years here. And what is neat about it was the people and the men and the camaraderie, and growing up with our kids who learned how to play golf here. And Don was gracious enough to say, well, we'll get you into the club and handle it from there. And so when '76, by 1980, I was on the board of directors. I had helped, like I said, design here. When Dave Benson was president, he was expanding the cart building, which was non-existent. The carts were always over the maintenance area, and every day they had to haul them back and forth. And so it was just in my forte. I just loved the creativity and learning something new. So I saw the drawings, helped design it, and we expanded built the cart room or building, as well as then the pro shop in the bag room. So it was expanded. And I was on the golf committee, and I saw the need of changing the carts, which were Cushman gas-driven, noisy, to setting up a transition of over 3 to 4 years into electric carts, and had that forecasted the cost and the expenses and so on. And over a period of 4 or 5 years, we switched over from the noisy clunker, the Cushmans, to the very quiet golf carts, electric, and that was a lot of fun, showing the depreciation and the values of that. And then also I was involved with the handicap committee, and I found a very interesting inequity going on. Some of the members who were in Florida or California came back with high handicaps all the time. So I changed the rule that their handicap would be based only on Lakewood, which was an uproar to begin with, because now the GIN system is in place. But at that time, whether I knew it or I didn't, I thought it was unfair, so I changed it. So people who had high handicaps could not come in here 6 shots higher on a handicap and play, and then win a few things that they really shouldn't have, I thought. So that was it, and then I was on the board of directors, and I'd gone through the roles of all of the committees. The only one I really didn't participate in was finance, but I had been on golf, tennis, swimming pool. I had been on green and the house committee in houses, so that all worked out. And then I was president in 1984, and we built, during that time, the second addition on the clubhouse, where the pub, which was, it's double the size what it was, but the outside was a screened-in porch, And so we designed a dining room. We took the pub and downstairs expansion and made it a permanent enlargement, the walls and windows and so on, and ceiling, and above it a new members dining room. And I looked at that, but the place I always wanted to have the members dining room was going to be on the pro shop, on the roof, because the setting was so perfect, high and above where you could look at 17 tee off, 18 green, 16 and 15, and you could even take a look at 9 green. But the transition of getting food service from the kitchen where it was to that point was so long that you'd have to have a corridor over from one building to another, and it just didn't work. So we wound up with a members dining room and increased the a bar. We put a bar in there. The boardroom was also increased, so that northern wall was expanded from just an outdoor patio on the roof